What's going on YouTube? West Hobbies RC. So today we are going to start on part 4 of the Phoenix Models Spitfire to Reno Racer conversion. So as you can see, bare airframe. As you've seen in the last part 3, we got the flat bays done, painted. We got the wheel wells filled in with balsa, sanded to shape, painted black. We filled in the wing here where there was a cutout on both sides. So wheel wells are done, they're painted, flat bays done and painted. Wing is done, we got all the shear webbing done all the way across on both sides from the wing tube out, because that's where it's going to be important. We zap dripped all of the wing, glued all the joints, fixed everything we need to fix in the wing, so the wings are done. So we're going to start covering these first. We're going to start with all silver. So, the fuselage just fell over. But we are going to start with the silver, which is this aluminum silver looking stuff. It does look like aluminum, which is very hard to focus on, but it does look like aluminum. And we have black here too, which is just regular old black. Both of these are Hobby King colors. This is called the bright silver. This is just a solid black. We have 2 more rolls, just because we don't know how much we're going to use. These are 5-meter rolls. We're going to start with the wing, and then we're going to move on to the fuselage. So we're going to cover the entire fuselage with the silver, the entire wing with the silver, and then we go back and add our black, which I'll explain more on when we get to that stage. The tail section, though, for the elevator and rudder, we cover in all black because there doesn't need to be no silver to black changing. And the only reason why we're going to cover the entire fuselage and wing in black, or in silver, I'm sorry, is because we have lightning holes. So in order to get a line, you'll have areas where it will not cover properly. So I'd rather just cover it all in solid color than add the trim on top of it. Depending on what you're doing on your trim scheme, you can do it multiple different ways. That is totally up to you on how you decide to do it. We will paint the canopy, tape it all off, get this painted black so it matches, and we will get the prop adapter put on, get the spinner back plate, and get the cowling done, and we should start seeing what it's going to look like by the end of this video. So we're going to cut to the time lapse of covering, and I'll be back in a second. Something I wanted to touch on real quick before we start the time lapse. So always start when you're covering with a fresh X-Acto blade. It will make your covering job so much cleaner. It will be such clean cuts. So I always start with a brand new blade. I remember being a kid, my grandfather used to get so mad at me because I would waste X-Acto blades in his opinion. So always start with a brand new razor blade. So what I like to do is I like to roll my covering out. I personally like my wing panels to be done in one piece. I don't like seeing seams, just me. You guys can do it however you like to do it. So I always leave a couple inches of extra for pulling and wrapping around. So now I have my wing panel set out. I'm going to go ahead, use my straight edge ruler. I will lay it across here, give me a couple inches of overlap, cut it off. Now I'm going to have from about here to here of leftover, which is basically wasted if you think about it, but we can use this pieces here to cover things like the ailerons, flap door or flaps, the aileron servos, flaps, covers, all that kind of stuff. So you never throw this away. We'll keep this, but we really just need from here to here is one solid piece, and then this will be left over to cover other little things that we need to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all 4 pieces. So I'm going to do a top. This will be a top piece. I'll flip the wing over, bottom piece. Cut them all the same because they're all going to be the same length pretty much. So I'm going to go ahead and get all my wing monocoat cut, and then start on the actual covering. And I also will do a little tip real quick. So with some of our leftover pieces, when you're doing wing panels or anything with very hard bends like this, I like to take and a little trick my grandfather taught me many years ago is you go ahead and you lay your covering inside of here, and you monocoat and cover your inside of your aileron areas first. Now we don't have to do it with the flaps because it's just a regular bay. It's, we don't have nothing here. This will just be a straight piece that gets cut out and just cut the middle out. But on the aileron side, you always want to cover inside first, so that way when you're covering the top and bottom. You don't have to try to stretch it. Then you'll get a gap in the middle here and wood showing through. So just a little tip to cover the inside of your aileron or flat control surface first, and then do your top and bottom of your covering. Now, if it is a nitro airplane, always remember to cover bottom first with a layover. I usually like to go to right where the top of the wing sheeting starts with a nice seam, and then I'll go from the top, lay down to the bottom, so that way fuel can't get in there and seep past your covering and eat your balsa wood. So, but on electric, it really don't matter, but because I'm used to building nitro airplanes, that's how I'm gonna do it. All right, so I start on the very beginning of the wing, pull it tight all the way to the edge, tack my corners, and then work my way out. Do all the edges first and then shrink the middle. That way you get a nice tight covering, bubble-free, and then just do your edges and trim it to fit. All right, a quick little tip for you guys. So we got the bottom of the covering done. We still have to cut out the wheel wells and flap wells, and of course hatch cutouts, which are here, here, and here. But a quick tip. So there is no string or anything inside for your servo. So when you go to, the wing is completely covered over, you could really just stick a rod through here and get it all the way through, and you can fish it through. But what I like to do is take a little bit of this braided fishing line, and I will just run it, put a little piece of tape, and I tape it to the monocoat, and then I just run it through, and I run it out here for now, and then when I'm done, I poke it up through. Same for here, little piece of tape stuck to the monocoat, run it through, and then when I'm done covering the top and I open this up, I'll pull it through here and tape it down to here. So that way, when I cut this surface or the covering off here, I have the string in my hand, leave excess of course, and then I tape it to the bottom. And that way, when I go to put my servos in, I tie the fishing line to the servos, and that allows me to pull the wire all the way through the wing. Simple, fast, and easy. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that done and then cover the top of the wing, just like this. So I got the fishing line, taped it to the bottom covering, ran it through the wing. Same thing with the flap, ran it through the wing. And now both my lines come out here. Now I'll just take a little piece of tape, secure these to the bottom of the wing while I'm covering the top. And then once I'm done covering, get this hole put out, and then I will put the lines through here, tape them down right there, and there you go. Now when we go to put the servos in, we can just, when we cut this out, it'll be taped, we can pull it down, tie that line to the string, to the wire for the servo, and pull it up through, right up out the hole, good to go. Now if your wing is covered, you can use a vacuum cleaner, like a shop vac, stick it on this end, put your line up through a hole, and it will suck it through. Sometimes not the best, but it does work. So now we're gonna cover the top of the wing. All right, so we got the top of the wing done, as well as the bottom of the wing. So one panel is covered in the silver. We still have to do the black trim, of course, but I wanted to show you guys a couple tricks. So I like to take this wood burner that I have. You can use a soldering iron, doesn't matter, but this is just a regular old wood burner. And what I like to do is, if you can see, let me find it so I can focus in on it. Okay, so right here, you could cut the monocoat. Now if you just go around it like this, it gives you a perfect hole. Now back here, we have another one. Bam. And then up here, we have another one. The reason I like to use a wood burner or soldering iron, you can use a sharp X-Acto knife, is because as it heats, as it cuts the monocoat, it seals it as well. Now, of course, I'll still go around with my iron and, seal it down, but the majority of this is sealed. So if you cut it out with a razor blade, like, for example, let's go ahead and we'll do this bottom hole. Hold on one second. Okay, so we're gonna find down here, we have a hole right here. That's for the wing bolt. So now we cut that out with a razor blade. Cuts it out just as good. Well, not just as good, but it cuts it out nicely. Now we have a hole. that kind of looks like crap, but we can take our iron now and we can run around it and seal that hole up. But if we just take our wood burner, soldering iron, get a nice hole, quick, simple, and easy. So I'm going to go ahead and do the wheel wells the same way. This aluminum really doesn't like to focus on the camera. So I'm going to go ahead and do the wheel wells the same way. Sorry for the camera being extremely out of focus. There we go. And the servo doors as well as the flap wells. And this panel will be set aside and we can start on this panel. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I got you guys rigged up here. Hopefully the camera stays where it is and doesn't fall over. But I wanted to give you a little tip on covering. So with this Hobby King covering, it likes a very low heat. So if you can see, I have my iron down to 3, which is what I found to be the perfect for this. I don't like using socks. A lot of people do. If you like socks, that's great. You can use a sock. Depending on the covering, if you have a scratched up iron, you can scratch your covering up a little bit. So basically, I cut my covering long. So as you can see, I have a little overlap here. I have about the same overlap all the way around the wing. Over here, of course, is more because of the taper of the wing. But I like to always start in one spot. So I will just go ahead and tack real lightly on my corners. And I just go all the way down the one edge of the wing first. And as the wing rolls around here. Now with this covering, it does not like to stretch really well like other coverings. So it's a little tricky to work with. But I just go ahead and get a nice tack area. And then I will pull it tight here. And just tack it along the line here. And work my way down the wing. Tack into this corner here. As I push out. And try not to get any wrinkles. And if you get any wrinkles, you can usually work them out a little bit. Try not to get them because it can be tricky, especially with this covering. And then I just go ahead and lightly push in a couple areas. Now I already did the other wing, so I know that where the troublesome areas are gonna be with this particular wing because of the curvature. Of course, covering a flat area is always easier. So I just go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to go ahead, since I have already got this much of the wing tacked down, I'm going to rotate the wing this way. Hopefully you guys can still see this. Let me move over here. Okay, so now I'm going to pull pretty tight. My iron's still on 3. So now I'm going to pull it pretty tight here and get it to where it looks somewhat decent. And I'm going to go ahead and tack the wing tip. So I'm going to work my way with pulling the excess. That's the reason why I use extra covering. It is a waste. You can cut a perfect piece. Doesn't give you a lot of room to work with. I'm okay with wasting a little bit of covering. And you're going to want to pull it around here. Hopefully you guys, sorry, you can't really see that well at all. So let me reposition this so you can see. Here we go. So I'm going to go ahead, pull down. I have my fingers resting under the wingtip. Pull down, and I'm going to work the covering out to eliminate any wrinkles. Again, this is just tacking it into place. I'm not really shrinking it down yet. I'm just going to go ahead and work the covering around the wingtip. The wingtips are the hardest spot to cover, especially with this covering. It likes to act like aluminum foil. So now I got the wingtip tacked down. So now you have a panel that somewhat looks like this. Now this is okay because we can pull forward and we can get a lot of that wrinkle out. And you just basically go around the wing. So now we're going to pull here. And we're going to go ahead and just tack down. We're going to just work our way around. Working all the wrinkles out, smoothing the covering. Pull it down and around. Again, this wingtip, make sure we get, this is going to be the hardest spot, so we will come back with a little higher heat to help shrink and pull that around. But now, again, we're just going to continuously go around the wing. I like to get all the edges first all the way around the wing, and then I'll come back and shrink the middle of the wing down. But I like to make sure that I got a good surface here. I want to make sure we go around these edges really good, especially when we go to shrink the center down, because if you don't have a good overlap around the edge of the wing all the way around, what'll happen is, say you cut it right here, you cut a real short line. I like to leave me about a 1/2 inch overlap till it starts to roll around the wing, and then I cut it off there. So that way when I do go to shrink the middle down, it can pull it really nice and tight. You get a nice, beautiful, tight covering job. And if it does pull the edge a little bit, that's okay, because you won't notice it. If you cut too sharp of a line here and you go to pull the edge down, what's gonna happen is it's gonna shrink it in the middle, and it's gonna pull that edge away, and now you just got an edge missed of covering, and now you gotta either rip all of it back off or patch panel it, which can look bad. Totally up to you. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish shrinking the wing down, and then I will be back. The aileron and flap servo covers here. Make sure if you're doing this color, you do the silver grain the same way so it matches with the bottom of the wing. Here I'm doing black on the underside of the flaps. When they're retracted, it'll be silver. When they're down, it'll be black inside, and it'll match the bay perfectly. So here is the completed wing. So we got all the aluminum done for both panels. We got the ailerons covered, both sides. We got all the holes cut out. This is where the retract servo goes. Your wires come up through here, your wing bolts back there. So we're gonna go ahead and flip the wing over here. We have the bottom done. Of course, wing is not glued together. We got all the aileron servo, flap servo covers. We still got to heat up a little bit and shrink some covering down. We got the flaps. Top of the flap is silver, and bottom of the flap is black. So that way when the flaps are open, it's all blacked out inside, just like the model we are going after. Again, flap servo, aileron servo hatches are done, both sides of the ailerons. One thing about this covering, if you can see it, if you look closely, you will see that the grain of the aluminum look goes, you can go side to side or forward and backwards, or you can cross it throughout, however you want to do it. I decided just to do left to right grain. So when you're covering things like your flaps or your ailerons, you have to make sure, or your servo door covers, you have to make sure you add that right, because if you have it the other way, it will be very noticeable. So we got it looking pretty good. I'm happy with it so far. Wheel wells done, painted, cut out, both of them. So far I'm extremely pleased with the way it has turned out. So I'm gonna have to end part 4 here, because if not, this is gonna be a 30+ minute video, and I'm really trying not to have these that long. But if you guys would like longer videos, let me know. But in the next video, we will start covering the fuselage, and we need to still add the black stripe to the wing. But I think before we add the black, I'm gonna go ahead and get the servos mounted, installed, and get all that done. So then the wing the retracts, we need to paint those, because I want those to be black, the struts. So we'll go ahead and get the wing completely finished up so it's done, and then work on the fuselage. But in the next video, we will start covering the tail section of the fuselage, and we will start with, of course, elevator, rotor. We have the rotor here. Gotta take the hinges out, and we'll start covering this. Elevator, rotor, all that's black. And fuselage, we're gonna cover in the same silver all the way across, and then add the black trim over it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful and useful to some of you. I think it came out looking pretty good. I'm happy with the color. This Hobby King stuff is a little tricky to work with, but it does cover really nicely. Looks good, it's smooth, no real wrinkles in it. A couple little areas, like here I gotta tighten up, but that's no big deal. And right here kind of looks horrible, but it is what it is. With the black trim, you'll never be able to see that, because the black comes from the wingtip here, if I remember right, and comes around like this. So really this whole center will be covered in black, as well as the line going all the way out. But I think all in all, the wing came out good. Okay, here's better view, so you can see the bottom of the flap is silver, top of the flap, inside of the flap is black, so that way when the flaps are open, it's all blacked out in there. Of course, they're not going to open that far, but all in all, I'm happy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care. Have a great day.